This conference will now be recorded.
My name is Steve Emming, President of the Library Board of Trustees. This is the meeting of the Board of Trustees on Tuesday, May 18th, 2021. We're meeting in the large meeting room of the main library, and the meeting is also being held virtually. All electronic meeting is being held because a fully in-person meeting is impossible or impractical due to concerns for the health and safety of board members, staff, and the public presented by COVID-19, and to follow the mayor's executive order directing social distancing and placing restrictions on gatherings. With that, we'll go into our agenda for today. First of all, we have the roll call. Craig Cooper. Here. Amanda Motto.
Here.
Thank you. Joe Heinrichs.
Present.
Malavika Shrikande.
Present.
Judy Lance.
Here.
Sylvia Roba.
Here.
Tom Engelman. Here. Maggie Motto. Maggie is absent today. And myself, Steve Emming. Also in attendance this morning is Amy Groskoff, the library director, Jennifer Williams, operation manager, Casey Shipley, recorder, and also joining us is our city council liaison, Marion McGinnis. Thank you everyone for your time to attend. And we'll move now into the agenda. An item on the agenda is the consent agenda. They have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I so move, Steve.
Thank you, Malavika. Is there a second? Second, Tom? Is that you?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Second for Tom. So I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to have a roll call since we're virtual partially. Back up a bit here, okay. Craig?
Yes.
Thank you. Amanda?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Malavika?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Sylvia?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And my own vote is yes. The motion carried. Next item on the agenda is public with comment. Is there anyone present from the public who would like to speak? Hearing and seeing no one, we'll move along on the agenda. Next item is reports and communications. First item there is a report from the Friends. We don't have anyone from the Friends actually in the meeting. Do you have any information for us, Amy?
I guess the only thing I would share is that the Friends elected some new officers at their last meeting. So the new president is Jerry Scalick. He is looking at committee assignments, and there are also a couple of new members and prospective members. So he'll be looking at making sure that they get committee assignments, and then he is also looking at goals for the group for the year.
Okay. Thank you.
Steve, I don't know, I don't always hear everything that went on at the meetings, but I know Laura has a different, I mean, she's not doing what she was doing, right, Laura?
Laura Guinness?
Yeah.
She's not the president of the Friends anymore. That's all I know.
Yeah, I don't know, she's done so much, I just wondered if we sent her a thank you or
Sure.
appreciation or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
From us.
It's a great idea. Thank you. No, she has. She's been.
Yeah, she's been, terrific.
Yeah.
And very dedicated.
Yep. We'll do that. Thank you. Okay. Okay, next item under reports and communications are the committee reports. First item there is finance. Anything from finance, Tom?
Nothing really. If you look at the budget recap, we're a big chunk of the way through the year, of the way through the year. But the expenses are running a little bit behind that percentage, which indicates we're being very careful with our spending.
Okay, thank you. Next item under committee reports is personnel. Anything from that committee? Amanda or Craig?
Nothing on my end.
Okay. Anything on your end, Craig?
No, the only thing I thought about was we talked about search firm, right?
Yes,
That's
I'm
coming
doing
out.
that today. Okay, thank you. Next item under committee reports is advocacy. Malavika, anything from your committee?
Steve, I don't have anything, just to share that tomorrow, May 19th, Wednesday at 4 p.m., I will be at the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion meeting at the library.
Okay, thank you. Next item under reports and communications is the director's report. Amy, anything to add or emphasize from what you said out?
I guess I do have a few things to add. The first is that, and this becomes important later on when you look at the administrative policies. The city has changed some of their HR department titles, so we wouldn't have the same issues that we had previously in terms of having positions look like they were duplicate. So we requested a title to Jennifer's position to Library HR Operations Manager. So we do get that kind of human resources piece into it. It gets pretty confusing to people who are applying for jobs or just anybody to know what her job responsibilities are. So that change was made, and so it becomes important in the administrative policies because there will be universal changes anytime her position is referred to. Now there's a position change in there to reflect that. I noted that we ordered the second phase of the furnishings for the main library renovation. We just heard that delivery is not going to happen until the week of August 30th.
Oh,
There are
wow.
still supply chain issues out there in the world.
Wow.
I did notice this morning as I was coming down that the light fixtures are being installed in the renovated restrooms, but we still don't have any doors for those. Again, supply chain issues, they are expecting those June 3rd, so hopefully that comes through. The focus groups. So if you have not gotten in touch with me about attending a focus group for the library strategic plan, please do so. I've only heard from 4 of the trustees as to whether or not they can attend. If the date that we presented for the trustee group doesn't work for you, please let me know. There are some additional options that we can offer. So unless you're going to be gone a full week or 10 days, we might.
That's the May 26th,
That was the May 26th. Yeah.
which is a Wednesday.
Next
Wednesday.
Yes.
Amy, I thought I let you know.
You
that-
let me know.
Okay, yes. I don't know about additional
Right,
options.
so I can send out information about it.
Okay, thanks.
If not, I will be.
Okay. So, so like I said, if you haven't, let me know, please, please do so we can make sure that we get people slotted into those. So, we did receive a small grant for science kits, to purchase science kits for, like I think it's grades 7 and lower, that can be checked out. So those will be of good use to homeschoolers or anybody else who wants to be able to do some science activities with their family. Thought I'd let you know about that. The bids for the masonry repair at Fairmont, at the Fairmont branch. So this was funding that was provided to us from the city in a budget amendment recently to fix the expansion joints at Fairmont. Most of those have all deteriorated and they're not waterproof anymore. So we do that, do some really limited tuck pointing, repair one stone that's deteriorating, and then replace a couple that are really badly deteriorated by the garage. So those will be out, those are going out today. And then Steve referenced the mayor's mandate For mask wearing, that has since changed. He made a change to that late Friday afternoon. So there is no longer a mask requirement in city facilities. We are changing our signage to highly recommended. And so far, I don't think we really had any problems with that. So, and our guidance for staff is still highly recommended. So that's the change that we're making with that. And unless anybody has any other questions, I think that's it. Oh, we are applying through the state library. They are a channel for some American Recovery Act funding for libraries. They've elected to make some of that funding available on a grant basis to every public library in Iowa for specific purposes. So we'll be applying for that. It's up to $5,000 for basically some additional electronic equipment. We can use that for additional hotspots for patrons. We can use it to upgrade some of our meeting room equipment that would allow patrons to have combination meetings, kind of like what we're doing right now at the branches, things like that. So that's the type of thing that we're looking for spending that money on. And I think that's it.
Any questions or comments on Amy's report?
Amy, I just have one question about the strategic planning. There are a few options where can the public come to the library, that is the Eastern Library, if they want to participate? I saw one date is Eastern Library.
Yes, so on May 20th,
Yeah.
5 p.m. at Eastern.
I mean, and they will have to register online, right, to come to that in-person meeting?
Yeah, just send an email.
Just an email? Okay.
Yeah, it's not a registered event, I don't think.
I'm sorry.
I know they posted that as a Facebook or through Facebook ad, and they sent something out through the library e-newsletter.
Yes.
So I think if they just send an email, that,
Okay.
You know, honestly, we have probably 9 or 10 scheduled for that one. So there's room for more people in that. So
Okay. For the in-person one, right, Amy, at Eastern? Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
I see there's not a meeting scheduled at Fairmont for this time.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
There's not a strategic planning meeting at Fairmont.
There is one for library patrons on May 20th, and then donors and volunteers and some other patrons May 24th at Eastern in the late afternoon.
But Fairmont Street.
Fairmont, because of the meeting room situation, Eastern was really the option that we had for in-person, was the best option we had. Because at the time we did it, their large meeting room really wasn't available, and it's not as big as the meeting room at Eastern. So we thought we could accommodate more people at Eastern.
Any other questions or comments? Just one comment, Amy. Really glad to see that the summer reading program or summer programming in general is such a hit. That sounds very encouraging, with particularly the way the schools have been, having letting opportunity to kind of fill in with some additional educational sessions is good. Okay. Next item on the agenda under reports and communications is our council liaison.
Thank you very much. There are some big things in front of council right now. The first one is the flood study, which the organization that we hired to do this has come back. There is an incredible flood, section on the city's website. There's a video. They didn't come back and say you need to do this, this, and this, and we didn't ask them to do that. They came back and they looked across the entire riverfront, which is 10 or 11 miles, and said, if you wanna protect to 22 feet, it's this. You have these options, raise the roadway, do a berm, do a flood wall, at different locations. And this is what it would look like. And this is approximately what that would cost for this section. And they did that all the way down the riverfront. Then they also talked about the other issue, which is not just the water that comes over from the river, but the sewer with the rain coming in and impacting the whole situation. And that particularly happens not just in the downtown area, but you kind of see the impact there a little more. And so they talked about ways of mitigating what that would cost. The city has put this out, has asked for people's opinions about it. It's about a 30-minute video. There's everything you want to know about the history of flooding in Davenport. There's inundation maps. There's all kinds of ways to slice and dice this. So I encourage you to go on. The council had a presentation last week, but it was not for us to sit there and say we want A, B, or C, because the cost of this overall up and down the whole Mississippi, if you take, one from column A and one from column B, or however you combine it, is it's like up to $50 million, okay, to do that. So, and there is no plan for over 24. It's like, and I said to consultants, so basically, let me get this straight. 27, which would be the 100-year, I said, we moved the town, is that right? And she said, yes, basically. So there's not even, it would be a 9-foot wall all along our riverfront. So in any case, they didn't present that. This is, I think a time that certainly council is taken seriously, that we're looking at different conditions, and that there are changing conditions up and down the Mississippi. I think most of us realize that. And so this may be the time where we really need to have a long range plan. Not that the city hasn't been very good at responding for the most part, but there's, they were looking at ways that wouldn't require such intensive, staff time and everything, which takes a tremendous amount of time every time we set up these temporary defenses. So, in any case, go on and take a look. We need thoughtful people to look at it, and to let us know what they think. And I'd love to hear from you also what you think, and just encourage your cohorts to do that. And you, again, go on, if you go on the city's website, you can find that. The other big piece of news that is even fresher is that we are starting to get guidance for the CARES Act dollars. I think it's 42 million, almost $42 million that will be coming to the city of Davenport. And I asked for more information, and now I'm trying to go through a Treasury report, and it's making my eyes cross. But there's sort of 3 areas that are covered, and it's one is responding, and I'm going to read this off the email that was sent yesterday, responding to the public health emergency or its negative economic impacts on residents, compensation for revenue reductions due to COVID, or support infrastructure projects related to water, sewer, or broadband. So this could be, and this doesn't seem, it's like, well, it's all to do with COVID. It actually goes deeper. And so as you look at, as you look, and I'm not a master of this at all, I'll probably say something completely wrong, but there is a lot in there about residents, especially in lower income neighborhoods, and housing, and educational things, educational outreach, a lot of things there covered in some of this. The revenue reductions could be, businesses proving harm, or retraining of maybe workers is one thing they threw out. Infrastructure projects relating to water, sewer, certainly our issues with flooding downtown would fit. Now, I'm not saying that's what we'll do, but as we're looking at what's the city trying to do and how do these things fit. Lead pipe, they called out replacing lead water lines into housing, and they mentioned that specifically as one that kind of was like, this would be a really good one. So, but what we're going to have to do is, and the city has a website for that, which is www.davenportiowa.com/COVID. There is a survey there asking citizens, what do you think? Now, maybe some of the responses will be outside what we'll be able to do, because, for instance, repairing streets is not one of the things that's included in this. That was, came to everybody's mind, of course, but because it's a long-term thing that we need. But I think we want to know people's thoughts. The city, we will sit down as a council on June 8th to really talk about this and what some options are. The other restrictions are that the dollars have to be spent by December 31st, 2024. So this is not money that's going to fund something. In other words, if there's something we decide to do, it's not going to fund in the years beyond that. Although there is a caveat in here that if the dollars are allocated, they could be spent in some cases by 2026. But again, this is not long-term. This is not long-term. Anytime you create a program, you have to fund it through eternity. And so this doesn't do that. There are also going to be some very strict reporting criteria here. Obviously, with this much money, I'm sure everybody wants to make sure it's spent properly. There's huge financial oversight. And the city's going to be, if say we gave money to an outside group or something, and not saying we want, but we would be responsible if that didn't work. It would be on the city. The city would have to pay that back. This is potentially a lot of money to have to pay back. So I think the city's going to be very diligent and very careful about those relationships, and it has to be, because I don't think any of us want to see this not work, and we want it to be successful and want to do it well. Staff has been working on this since we first learned of the program. They started just sort of brainstorming, and now with the guidance, immediately they were starting to look and say, hey, could this fit here? Could this fit here? Could this fit here? And we're getting, and all of the guidelines are really not there yet. So there's kind of a moving target. They're doing everything they can to queue themselves up. Personally, I would love to see, we have within the city, I think our two greatest community assets are our park system and our library system. That's my personal opinion. So I would, as we're looking at this, I'm going to be thinking about those two, and neighborhoods are important to me, of course, too, but I'm going to be thinking about those assets that are internal assets, and how there might be a role there for programs that would meet some of this criteria. It is, the targets are like, for instance, it talks generally about programs that work with school children in low to moderate income census tracts. Well, here you go. How many of those do we have? Programs that might be after school training and, other kinds of things. And they're not saying this is specifically what you have to do, but they were using examples. So I really, I think we need to think big. I don't think we're going to be looking at 1 million different projects, because that would be incredibly difficult to manage as a city. But we will see. I might be completely off base about that. So I just wanted to let you know about that. And I'm sure that, again, if you have any questions of me, I'm learning about this as well. I'm certainly not an expert. But those are really two of the biggest things in front of council right now. The Dream Project, which is the rehab of houses in the Dream area, which is south of Locust and sort of our low-income census tracts. All of Third Ward, of course, is included. But that is ongoing, and that deadline is May 21st. And people don't have to know everything they want to do to their house. If you go online, again, the city has a Dream Project site. Just go on and type Dream Project 2021, and you'll go to it. But if you're interested or someone who's in that area who might be interested, they need to go and fill in a simple inquiry form by May 21st, just saying, hey, I'm interested. And then the staff will follow up. But May 21st is the cutoff. You don't have to have contractor, bids or anything else. It's just, and the staff really does a lot of hand holding through this project. That's coming up, soon. So I guess really that's about everything I have, unless anybody has any questions of me. We do have a new city council member coming on board, or to be voted on, and that's coming up very soon. So this is replacing Alderman Peacock, who is moving to Illinois. So in any case, that is moving forward as well. So it's an appointment. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Okay. Next item on the agenda is new business. First item there is a motion to remove the time limits for patrons using the library. We have a motion to approve the removal of the time limits.
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sylvia. So I have a motion and a second to remove the time limits for patrons using the library. Is there any discussion?
What's the thinking here? It's time to open up.
I think, part of our thinking is it's time to open up, but also it's simply not that big. There really is room for people in the library. You can be socially distant. We have plenty of space, and our patrons are getting really frustrated in terms of people who need more time, who are looking for more time in their spaces. And we're also planning at the same time, we'll expand our public computer time to 2 hours. Again, we've had a lot of people saying, you know what, I'm almost done with my job application, and now I gotta leave, I'm getting thrown off the computer. So we need to expand that and kind of go back a little bit more towards our normal support.
Has the staff had any comments about it?
The staff says, please do this.
Take that as a vote of confidence.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, now I'll call for the vote. Amanda?
Yes.
Thank you. Joe?
Yes.
Malavika?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Sylvia?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
And my own vote is yes. Motion carries. Next item under new business is motion to approve the administrative policies, section 1, employment practices, and section 2, performance expectation. These are the policies that we had an opportunity to comment on and were discussed at the last meeting. And so I have a motion to approve administrative policies, sections 1 and 2. Thank you, Julie. Is there a second?
I second. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Tom. So I have a motion and a second to approve section 1 and 2 of the administrative policies. Call for the vote.
Phoebe.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any discussion?
So one thing that was mentioned from a board member commenting was about the statement about tattoos. And so in the first version of the corrected policy that we sent, and in what you have now, there's language there that indicates that tattoos need to follow our normal dress code guidance. Like there shouldn't be any writing or any logos or any symbols or anything like that on it. So we just, because we don't want to have to selectively tell staff this is or this is not appropriate in terms of providing a welcoming environment to our patrons, we just say, no, you can't do it. In tattoos, that gets to be a little bit more problematic. And the city policy is silent on tattoos. So we would like to remove that section and then just be silent on it as all the rest of the city departments are in terms of what is allowed on a tattoo. And then if we find we need to deal with a specific issue in terms of something that a staff member has that we feel is creating a hostile environment for patrons or a hostile work environment for other staff members, then we would deal with that on a case-by-case basis. We do have a lot of staff who have a tattoo on a wrist, on an arm that is a quote from a favorite book, or is a child's name, all those kinds of things. And we feel like those would be really difficult to police, and we really don't want to, in all honesty.
Amy, I'm sorry. I just, it was going kind of a little bit in and out. So is the proposal then to remove the red language about, that was inserted about tattoos completely out of 2.7?
Yes, that's what we're looking for. We'll just stay silent on that, especially since city administrative policy stays silent on that as well.
Okay. So then, so we're removing, I think we need to amend the motion then? Or is that what was in, what was?
No, so we would need to amend the motion to approve sections 1 and 2 with the change to policy 2.7 to remove item 6 relating to tattoos.
And the highlighted below it?
The highlighted below it was part of what's being approved.
Okay. So I guess I'm asking for a motion to amend the current motion to change section 2.7 to remove item 6 related to tattoo. Is someone willing to make such a amendment?
I will.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Is there a second to the amendment? Second. Thank you, Craig. We have a motion and a second to amend the motion that's on the table to change that to say a motion to approve administrative policy section 1, employment practices, and section 2, performance expectations, with a change to section 2.7 to remove item 6 as it relates to tattoo. Further discussion of the amendment? Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, who decides then, Amy, what's appropriate and what's not, and how's the city handle that?
Sure. I'm sorry.
How does the city handle, who decides what's appropriate and what's not?
I think there are some individual department policies. Jennifer, you know, I think police might have,
Police and fire might have, I don't know exactly what it says, I'm not doing it.
but other departments, to my knowledge, are silent on that.
Well, for example, I mean, if someone decides to have a swastika as a tattoo, then, okay, then what?
Then like I said, then I think we would deal with that as a harassment, as a creating a hostile work
Okay, so
environment.
that's the direction you would go.
Or a hostile environment for patrons. Got it, yeah.
Based on like complaints or your judgment, or how does it gonna roll out? Don't know yet. Don't know yet. Fair to say. Okay.
I can't imagine that a staff member could show that type of tattoo very visibly without generating a staff or patron complaint.
I would imagine.
I said, I can't imagine.
My only question is who decides, because your thought may be different than mine.
Right. Well, so it would come to me, and then if the staff member wants to challenge that decision, then they would go through the complaint procedure that ends up at the library board.
So
Ultimately, that would be your decision if there is a complaint.
and I'm sure we'd be very wise.
So is there any other discussion? Okay, so just to clarify, this vote is on the amendment to change section 2.7 of the performance expectations to remove item 6 as it relates to tattoos. Joe?
Yes.
Malavika?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Sylvia?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
My own vote is yes. The motion carried, an amendment. So now we'll go back to the amended motion. So motion before us now is to approve administrative policies, section 1, employment practices, and section 2, performance expectations, with the change to section 2.7 to remove item 6 as it relates to tattoos. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, if not, I'll call to the vote. Malavika?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Sylvia?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
And my own vote is yes, the motion carries. Next item on the agenda under new business is discussion of administrative policies, sections 3 through 6. Jennifer?
Okay, I'm gonna go through the summary, and Jennifer's gonna be my safety net.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
No problem. So anything that you see in red are changes that were made based on board member comments. I wanted to call attention, so just in general, we did receive a question about our use of personal pronouns, his, hers, theirs, and how to handle that. We had switched to using theirs as a more inclusive term for staff members who do not identify as, or staff members who identify as binary. So, so that's why we use theirs. If the board feels we want to move everything back to his, hers, theirs, and repeat all that all the time, we certainly can, but that was the reasoning behind that particular decision. Otherwise, we'll just go through and make global changes to all of that. So that's just that general statement. Policy 3.3 with the complaint procedure. So we are going to be making some additional changes to that one prior to approval at the next meeting. So the scope for that policy is really non-bargaining employees instead of all employees. Because for bargaining employees, there's a complaint procedure in the AFSCME contract, and that's staying there. So given that change, step 3 will be removed. So that removes arbitration from that procedure, and the board will be the final decision maker for complaints. So that's the change for that one that you'll see coming next time. Did anyone have anything else regarding section 3? Otherwise, I'll kind of move on to section 4, and we can take these a section at a time.
Anything else on section 3? Okay.
Okay. In section 4, policy 4.5, there was a question about Saturday holidays. And this is, if a staff member is not scheduled to work on a Saturday holiday, they receive another day off during the week because the staff that are scheduled to work are paid that holiday because we'd be closed. So if the 4th of July falls on a Saturday, staff that was normally scheduled to work that Saturday would be paid a holiday on that day, or all staff would be, right? So any staff member would need to take another day off that week that's scheduled through the normal scheduling process with their supervisor, because we can't have everybody off. So on a Sunday holiday, the library is closed on Monday, on the following Monday. But there isn't a closure for a Saturday holiday because we're normally open, so we close on the holiday day. That was probably a little confusing how I explained that.
What happens with if Christmas Eve and Christmas Day fall on Saturday and Sunday?
We'd be closed on the 24th on Christmas Eve. That's a day we're normally open, so we don't close on the Friday in front, right? So we close on Saturday and pay staff 8 hours of holiday pay for the Saturday. And then sometime during the course of the week prior, the staff member will be scheduled a day off. But that's scheduled at the discretion, again, of the department supervisor, because we can't have everybody off on Friday to get the 4-day weekend.
Sure.
Then for the 25th, for Christmas Day, we would be closed on Monday to accommodate the Sunday holiday.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I think that's what we're doing this year. That's probably the holiday falls this year on Saturday. Yeah.
Thank you.
Leave of absence. There were a number of things with that. So under military leave, that verbiage.
What section are we in?
I'm sorry, 4.6. So military leave, you'll notice there's a lot of redlining there. Our statements were out of date, and so they've been changed just to say that military leave of absence will be granted in compliance with federal and state law. Bereavement leave, that was changed a bit to match language from the city policy. But there's not a substantial change there, though there is a typo there that we know we need to correct, which we will for next time. It's 3 days, not 30 work days. So, but there's not really substantial change in that. Jury and witness duty, again, the language was changed to match from city administrative policy. The reason we can't just use the city policy is because it references always the department director. So ours needed to say library director because we use the term department head in a different way than the city does. So, so that's why that had to get retyped a little bit instead of, and we couldn't just use the city policy. For leave for voting, there was a question about the beginning of the first sentence about how that was phrased. And we left that the way it was because that's the exact wording from the contract. And that wording is staying the same in the contract that was approved for July 1. So we did want to change that. The reference is that if there are not 3 hours outside of somebody's work schedule to give them time to vote, then we make accommodations so that a staff member can get time off to vote. It really hasn't been an issue. Now, if polling times start to get really tight and they start closing the polls, you know, at 6 o'clock in the evening or something like that, it could be certainly become more of an issue for us in the future. But hopefully that won't be the case. Anything else on that policy? Any other questions on that one? Or anything else in section 4?
Anything else on section 4? Okay.
Okay.
There we go.
So section 5 in policy 5.1, recruitment and selection. This is one where there's quite a lot of difference from what was in the contract. So this is language that is no longer in the contract and now has been pulled out into administrative policy. The big change is that we won't be filling positions solely on the basis of seniority. So as positions become vacant, we will post them internally and externally and then hire the best person we can find for the job. So that might be a staff member who is in-house and has the most seniority. It could be a staff member in-house who doesn't have the most seniority, or it could be somebody from outside. So, but our goal is to be able to hire the best person for the job. Let's see. There was a question about how we determine how to recruit from underrepresented groups, and I think we didn't really understand the question.
Oh,
But
it might have been mine.
it might have been you, or it might have been Amanda, or is it Sylvia?
Well, I can.
Oh, maybe Sylvia. Okay.
Your question.
Okay.
Okay, so the question is, what is the language that you're going to recruit from underrepresented populations? Is that what it says?
It says special emphasis will be placed on the recruitment of groups that are underrepresented in the library workforce.
Yeah, I guess I'm like, well, how was that determined? Like, who's underrepresented? And then are you going to do that? I mean, it seemed like a straightforward question, but apparently it wasn't.
Okay. Well,
how do you?
Yeah, so right now,
Men, I mean,
get
right, like men, because they're underrepresented,
Yeah.
right?
we get reports.
In the library world, they are.
Yeah. We receive reports through the city's affirmative action officer that it tells us, you know, in terms of our current employees, where we are in terms of the number of white women, white men, black women, black men, Asian, Pacific women, men. So it goes kind of through that. So that's one way where we can look at and say that we are underrepresented in certain groups based on their representation overall in Dallas Parish.
Okay, that makes sense.
So that's one tool we have to determine that. In terms of being able to successfully recruit and expand our recruiting, I think a lot of that is outreach. So as we do more outreach and just share more information about the fact that, you know, we're looking for people who perhaps, you know, in our customer services department have really good customer service skills. We don't care if you've got library experience or not. So if you've been working fast food or you've been working at Walmart or Target or wherever, I think part of our challenge is people just not thinking about the library as a place where they might be able to transfer their skills to. So I think that that's just simply more awareness.
I just wanted to make sure there was, you know, like intentionality
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
You know, not that we're just welcoming of different groups of people, but that you're intentional about how we go about that. So it sounds like you've already thought of some things that would help that.
Good question, Susan.
In policy 5.3, promotion in,
I still have,
I'm sorry.
From 5.1.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
sorry,
Yeah, okay, so I have actually started to talk about this. But when we talk about fair treatment with regard to an applicant's race, color, et cetera, well, we don't need to have sex and gender or gender identity, because sex is gender identity or gender. I mean, I don't know, how would that be made different? And so what it says to me, if we're protecting people with gender identity, like if I say I was born into a woman's body, but I identify as a man, I'm a trans person, then we're protecting that person. But I don't see anything about gay, lesbian, bisexual people, and there's no language about that. And so how are we handling that? I think that's a really an important issue for us to address. And I don't think the city addresses it, but that doesn't mean we can't, right?
Sorry, where are you on this?
Well, it's 5.1, under selection, number 2.
Okay.
There's a lot of red writing there. And I'm specifically addressing bullet point number 3, which isn't numbered, but it's the third one.
so to add sexual orientation,
Well, it might be repetitive to say sex and gender
That's what I
identity,
just said.
right?
Yeah, I just said that, yeah.
Yeah,
We don't need both of those.
Right.
And in fact, gender and gender identity is a better term, but that says nothing about sexual preference, gay, lesbian, bisexual people. There's no protection in here for those people, which would be a greater portion of the population than people who have gender identity, for sure. And so aren't we want to be welcoming in that way?
oh, yes, absolutely.
But we don't say it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, we just don't say it. It's not there.
So instead of saying sex, can we change that and cross that out since it's covered under gender and then indicate sexual orientation?
Jennifer, is that the best term to use? If we're talking specifically about gay, lesbian, and bisexual people, to say sexual preference? I think there's like a more current term, but I'm not sure I know what it is.
Let me do some kind of research.
Is gender identity maybe sexual orientation or gender identity? I'm not saying that's the right one. I'm not sure I have the right one either, but.
Well, those are different things.
Correct. And you're talking about protecting both, correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So maybe, I don't know, it's just a suggestion. I don't know if it's correct.
Marion, what does the city say about this? How does the
Due
city
to COVID-19, unless you have a computer or Wi-Fi appointment, time in the building is limited to 30 minutes.
We won't have to hear that anymore. Yeah, right. Not that we don't love that.
Does the city address it, Marion?
I am not an expert in city HR. I would suggest that someone ask the HR department, because I am the last person because to know that. So I don't remember it being a discussion. I'm not sure it would be something that would have been brought to council, but maybe speaking to the HR department, maybe they have an answer for it. I don't know.
Or we can just add sexual orientation if we agree to that and call it a day.
Well, Jennifer can do some research to find out.
Yeah, the best way to say it, because the city administrative policies have not made the updates like we're doing right now with the pronouns and all of that kind of thing at this point. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, I'll find the best way to kind of include that in there.
So since this is not for approval at this meeting, we can
Oh, okay.
investigate that, make the changes,
Great.
and then present for approval at the next meeting.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments on 5.1? Okay, hearing none. Okay.
Okay, and then as we go to 5.3, promotion and transfer, this goes also back similar to recruitment and selection in that for the promotion process, we're not going to be promoting bargaining unit staff by seniority only now, and we will fill with the most qualified internal or external applicant. So I guess I jumped ahead a little bit and mixed up promotion and transfer.
Just
recruitment
an
and selection.
aside, that the union's fine with that?
This is no longer a allowable subject for bargaining.
Oh, you said that, didn't you? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I was really listening, but I didn't get it. Okay, I get it now.
So I think mostly they are okay with it, some more than others. But in doing exit interviews, Jennifer has heard comments from some of our newer staff members who we would have loved to have kept on, who felt that the promotion process was really not fair, and they really didn't like it because they didn't see a path forward for them, even if they were doing remarkably well, good work, because it was, simply on the basis of seniority.
And I recall we had at least one, if not more, grievances about this very topic.
Yep.
So,
Yep. And then policy 5.4, layoff and recall. There was a question about recall being limited to 12 months, which seems like it kind of contradicts the previous language. This is something that's still in the contract, and so we left it the way it is because it's the exact wording that is in the contract. It would really be probably much more clear if it was just simply in a couple different paragraphs. So recalled staff, if you're recalled, you have 5 days to respond or you lose your recall rights. But you can stay on a recall list for up to 12 months. So if at 5 months you're recalled and you don't respond, then you're losing your rights to recall. But also is true is that if you're not recalled, you stay on a recall list for 12 months. So a carriage return or an enter that would have created a new paragraph in the contract probably would have been clarifying in that particular situation. So it's kind of referring to two different things.
Just thinking young people might not know what you meant by a carriage return.
Yeah, probably not.
raise your hand if you understood the carriage return around. Yes.
Where'd that bell go?
Good call. No.
Okay, anything else on any of the section 5 policies?
Okay, nothing else on section 5? Okay.
So section 6, in policy 6.2, there was a question about in remote work about which departments the policy applies to. We have it written as applicable departments because this is so situational that we really couldn't find a better way to identify it. Because it might be that a staff member in a department, depending on what their job responsibilities are, could work remotely. But another staff member in the department who has a different position isn't able to work remotely. So it's so situational that we really couldn't figure out a different way to frame that. And I know one question that I think Steve had was about security, in terms of digital security and risk of, having the library system hacked as people are working remotely. So only employees who have assigned library devices have remote access to the library network. So we know that there's good security on there that was provided by our staff. Otherwise, a lot of the remote work that was done during our various shutdowns, was people, doing things on Facebook or recording YouTube videos and things like that. So a lot of it was not anything that really even touched our library network. Or people were, doing email or online training and things like that. So, so you have to have a library assigned device in order to be able to connect remotely. So we feel that, and our IT supervisor feels that that is pretty secure. He used to work in banking in IT, so he's pretty aware of security and is, I think, doing a good job with making sure that we don't create problems for ourselves unnecessarily.
Any questions or comments on 6.2? Okay.
And so is there anything else in the section 6 policies that people have questions or concerns about?
Have all of the policies been looked at by any attorneys or anyone in law?
So they've been, a huge majority of this are things that were in the already approved policies, administrative policies, where we've had specific questions. We've asked for opinions from the city attorney. The nepotism policy, things like that, where we were kind of not real sure. So a while ago, we checked with city legal on that. So
That was actually that section that made me ask the question.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
That particular policy was updated fairly recently, so before you got on the board, Joe, because we were way out of date. So. Okay, so we will make the additional changes that were discussed, and then these policies will be presented then for approval at the June board meeting. So, and as a reminder, we need to have them approved no later than July 1, because that's when the new contract, the new ASME contract goes into effect. And so without that coverage on some of these things, we don't have any current policy then for staff members for some of these things.
Okay. Thank you, Wayne.
Such sophisticated technology we have.
We should get a rope.
Yeah.
That's 2.0. Okay, moving on. Next item under new business is a motion to approve contracting with a search firm for selection of a new library director. As I mentioned previously, well, I believe I sent that information out, so we'll go through that in the discussion. We can have a motion to bring this to the floor.
So moved.
Thank you, Joe. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Julia. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve contracting with a search firm for selection of a new library director. As I mentioned, let's open the discussion of this by saying that, or I guess, saying that I sent out an email with information about saying that the executive committee, myself, Sylvia as secretary, and Tom as vice president, met and talked about this. And it was our recommendation that we engage a search firm to help with finding a new director. I anticipate there will be my recollection from hiring one other library director, and also I think from being involved with hiring 3 school superintendents, that you can do it yourself, but there is a
But
lot
we're
of
not
work to be-
crazy.
Yeah, there is a lot of work to be done, and, others routinely do it themselves, but it's our recommendation that we hire someone, so we have the help to, go out and find applicants and kind of help us go through the process. There was a lot of information provided from previous searches that Jennifer sent out, and appreciate that. So that'll give you kind of an idea of just some of the checklists and things like that. So I'll just, since that opens the discussion, is there any other discussions or questions regarding the motion to hire a search firm to help us find a new library director?
I would like to make a suggestion that we try, we don't have to, but we try to use as local a search firm as possible. I don't think we need a search firm out of California.
Joe, one of the things that we discovered the last time we did this is that there actually are no local search firms that specialize in libraries. And it's kind of a niche market, wouldn't you say? And, I mean, if it's possible to do it, and yeah, if it's possible, but I know that's what we did discover last time. And we got someone from Chicago, right?
Yeah, there are two, search firms that specifically, that kind of specialize in one of their niches is the library market. They are both in the Midwest. One is based in Chicago and one is based in
Milwaukee or somewhere in Wisconsin.
Missouri, I think Missouri or Kansas. So, yeah, so I mean, I absolutely agree with you, Joe, in that sometimes unless somebody has lived in the Midwest and if you spent your entire life on the West Coast or the East Coast, sometimes the Midwest is just.
It's a mystery.
And it's a big kind of a culture shock, and the person can sometimes struggle in terms of just, I don't know, how Midwesterners and Highlands do things. So.
Yeah, but we did use that Midwest search firm.
Yeah.
But if you know local search firms that might be able to fit into this, I would think that would be great. Because
Is there any initial budgetary thing that, or you just wait and see who signs?
the city pays.
Is like there's some.
Yeah, the city has indicated, and they did, even before I indicated my retired, they shared that funding was available through the city to hire a recruiting firm.
Okay. Yeah. But we would be the people establishing more or less the salary and the expenses and all of that, but the hiring, cities.
Yeah, so the city has expressed willingness to pay for the recruiting firm.
Because I don't think they did last time either. I think the Friends paid for it, as I recall.
Is the search firm responsible for advertising the position then? I mean, placing it wherever?
Oh, yes.
Steve,
They do all that.
Yes.
Steve, to follow up on what Craig said, they advertise for the position. They make the initial sieving of the candidates, and do they present a group to us? Is that how it works?
It can work any number of ways, but the way that it worked last time, which may or may not be the best way to do it, we had a personnel committee group, a search committee group that worked with the search firm. They gave us, maybe it was 5 candidates, and we interviewed them over the phone. And then from 5, we picked 3, and then those 3 came here on the same day. Yes, the same day, and interviewed with the staff, with, I think some public came. We had a reception for them, and then we interviewed them. So and by we, I mean the whole board. And I guess if I'm speaking for the executive committee, we definitely want it to be a committee of the whole. We don't want to be, having 3 people. We want, right?
Yes.
Speak to
Yeah.
that. Yeah. We want everybody involved.
To hire the firm, we would need to go through a request for proposal or request for qualifications process. That go through that purchasing process. And so that gives the board a chance to interview the firm and to learn specifically what services they're offering and or to let the firm know which of the services they offered they want to take advantage of. That way you can have those conversations and select the firm that you feel most meets the board's needs. So, so that's really the first part of the process. And so if the board approves contracting with a search firm, that RFQ is ready to go out tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, Amy. And one last question. Again, in continuation to what Joe asked about, he said about local, and I absolutely agree, Sylvia, it's a niche market to go. But are there any firms that the Public Library Association has in that they know of, that they share? Because we are a member, right, of the Public Library Association. So do they have a set of firms that they can share with us? If there's anybody local in there?
We can check. We asked city purchasing to include the 2 library firms that we're aware of to make sure those were included. And they had a list of 5 to 7 other firms that they were going to send it to, but they'll send it to whoever we want. So we can double check with PLA or ALA to see if.
Right, PLA or ALA. Yeah. Just a thought, if they know of something which is there on their list.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments on the motion to approve contracting with a search firm for the selection of a new library director?
Do we have a time frame that we're looking at to hopefully have a new director hired?
Well, we would hope to do that before Amy leaves. It's kind of, I think, once we talk with the firms, I guess we have to find out how they see that going, and and some of that also will relate to if they have different services available that we pick and choose from.
I know Amy may think it's an eternity, but October's not that far away.
No,
No,
it sure isn't.
No, it's not. But in fact, one of the prior library searches, not the one for Amy's predecessor, but we had one before that took a couple of years, didn't it?
Yeah.
Well, and I think in this area, in the Quad Cities, there have been some pretty long-term searches for library directors, as I recall.
Yeah, they haven't been so bad lately.
Island, there have been some. Yeah. It's not an easy position to fill.
That's what I figured.
Your shoes are very big.
Yeah.
Well, I did share with Steve that within reason, I'd be willing to be flexible, and hopefully there's an offer that's made and accepted before I will leave. So.
That's
okay.
Within reason.
Yes.
Within reason.
There's no urgency here.
I'm on the side of the retired. I'm a voice for the retired.
Okay, if there's no further questions or comments, I'll call for the vote on the motion to approve contracting with a search firm for selection of a new library director. Let's see, Judy.
Yes.
Thank you. Sylvia?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes. Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
And Malavika?
Yes.
And my own vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Last item on the agenda under new business is a motion to authorize the executive committee to act for the board in matters regarding the director search when a meeting of the full board is impractical or time is a factor.
So moved.
Thank you, Joe. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Did you all agree to this? You've all talked about this with each other, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
is that just?
Did we talk about this?
I don't know,
Okay.
maybe, but we have default agreed to it.
Yeah, I would say that, as I mentioned in the email I sent out, that this, we, in our current bylaws, there is a section that says that in the case of emergencies, the executive committee can act for the full board. It takes a majority vote of the executive committee, and that, but that speaks to emergencies. And although hiring a library director is our primary purpose, that and making policy for the library. In fact, those two things I think are our only focus. But given that, I still think it falls short of an emergency. So that's why the reason for this motion is, just to, there's going to be a lot of meetings, and there may be times when matters need to be approved, but it's not something we want to call a special meeting for. So, yes. Is there any other discussion or questions on the motion? Now let's call for the vote. Sylvia?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Malavika?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
And my own vote is yes. The motion carries. Last item on the agenda is adjournment. Just wanted to say, first of all, thank you everyone for your work on these items. Sorry to dump so much reading on you. As Amy said, we need to have these approved, and it seems like best to bite the bullet and put them in there. And things are going to be busy going forwards with our search for a new director. And so we'll be busy. But I don't think being a member of the Library Board of Trustees, while important, I don't think it's been a real burden for anyone. I hope not anyone. So anyway, with that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
Yeah.
Thank you, Craig. Those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Appreciate it.
Nice to meet you all.
Notice you didn't let
So
me
if
put on my
everybody